Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fine edition of Millennial Pro Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Ray Rosas, and here with me are the Divine Brothers, Brendan and Danny. Now, today we'll be...
Don't interrupt. Go ahead, Ray.
All right, please.
Thank you, Ray, for having us.
Well, here we are. Another episode, part 2 of Ray Rosas' expose.
That is not what this is.
I like it. I like that name.
Exposing you for the piece of shit that you are.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to...
Brought to you... Oh, we didn't do the thing. Brought to you by a coffee and a Coke.
Yeah, well, if you didn't interrupt my intro...
Start it over.
Run it back.
Recording already. It's too late.
Now, see, the thing about the coffee and the Coke is that one night after, training in Moore Park, we went to Denny's. And I didn't have work the next day, so I'm like, hey guys, let's go to Denny's.
And we cried about it. We're like, oh my god.
You want to hang out with us outside of practice?
Yeah, I just want to be alone. It could have been anybody.
We were just there last.
You're like a human BoJack Horseman.
Dude.
Let me tell you, that show broke me. That show is the saddest show, but I continue to watch it
So
and
good.
just take it in. Just stab my eyes with great content.
Sure. I like to cry.
Yeah, I like to feel sad and I feel something.
Yeah, sure.
So we went to Denny's, and then I kind of wanted a coffee, but I wanted something cold. So then I'm like, let me get a coffee and a Coke. And then they're like, these guys always copying what I do.
True.
I'll take a coffee and a Coke too. And then that's been the thing now. Every time I go to Denny's or go to after a show, we go to a restaurant. I'll get a coffee and a Coke just so I can have both. And it is so refreshing. You drink your coffee, and you drink a Coke. Oh, that's
And I will put you over here. Ray is the nicest person to every single waiter or waitress we've ever had. This is the same thing.
You have to be.
I know, but it's like you're always like,
Not that you have.
I hope you're having a great day. I will have a coffee and a Coke.
Not that you have to be, but it's just these people this is their job, and they have to deal with shitty people all day long. They're on their feet. They're serving you. They're like bringing you your food. Yeah. So it's just common courtesy to treat them well, treat them like humans, treat them equals, and then tip them very well.
Yeah.
I'm the nicest guy in the drive-thru too. You should see me in the drive-thru. People are like, oh, welcome to McDonald's. How you doing? I'm like, how's your day going? They're like, oh, great, fine, thank you. And it's just that, because I do work in public service. You know what I mean?
Right.
I have to see people walk up to me and I have to say the same thing. Good morning. How are you today? Or blah blah blah. And then when you do leave an impression both ways. When somebody's like, oh, whatever, blah blah, and they give you a hard time, and then you just like, that ruins your day. But then you get that person's like, wow, man, everything's great. How is your day going? You're like, oh, good, thank you. And then
Restores your faith in humanity.
there's very little.
Super little.
So how do you book wrestling?
What are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about how I weaseled my way into Millennium Pro Wrestling, and then how I fought my way and politicked my way to the top.
Right there. Wow, is that...
Perfect. That sounds great.
Because we always think that you're the hero of your own story, but then sometimes you're a villain in someone else's. So
Mine, actually.
yeah,
Man, shut up. Everybody hates you. We all talk about it.
we all do. You're the villain in everybody's story, even your own.
How do I turn you off?
You don't.
I guess it all started back in the. We gotta do a flashback. Can you do a flashback gimmick?
To what? He'll put the image of you walking out the first time, probably.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
will do that.
Editing.
Let me tell you right now that I didn't want to be a teacher or a trainer ever. I didn't want to be responsible for anybody. I just wanted to worry about myself.
You messed that up big time.
Well, that comes in personal and professional growth. Now, they wanted me to be a trainer, and I want to say that I'm remembering this correctly. They wanted me to be a trainer at Santino's, and I didn't want to. I just wanted to go and train. Just wanted to go and maybe help, but I didn't want to actually have my own class because I didn't think I had much to teach or much to learn. I'm just going to end up teaching you what Joey's teaching you.
Regurgitated version of what I learned.
Yeah, so I don't think I had much to offer. When I started training with Los Luchas, I was learning and picking up a lot of new things, and this is like, wow, this is great because I pretty much learned everything that I could learn under a certain person, under Joey and whomever, and Robbie. So when I went to Los Luchas, I was learning brand new stuff. So it's like, cool, I'm getting a new challenge. But I never wanted to have my own class, run my own class. I just didn't feel like who would want to learn from me when they could just take it from Joey or Robbie or straight from the source. fast forward, falling out. I'm a nomad. I'm a Ronin without trying to find but I knew that I needed a place to train to maintain.
Sure.
My ring shape. Not to
quarantine has taught us all that having a ring, access to it, very important.
Yeah, because even if I'm not in the best shape, but I need to keep my cardio up and keep my ring shape up, and then that's when I went to and just so happened that I was already booked over at the Underground Empire Wrestling UEW, where Max X is from, Mickey Rose.
Max X.
So I was booked in a cruiserweight title or a cruiserweight tournament, and I wrestled Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy's first match as an adult was against me.
And his last real indie day before he got signed was with you.
I don't know if it was or not, but yeah. So I was there, and Youth Suicide, the name was his wrestler name, but Andre Verdun was the owner and booker of UEW, and so I just approached him with an idea, and I'm like, hey, I've had this idea that I tried to pitch to Joey, Chaos, and he didn't really go for it, so I had this idea for you, especially because you have a lot of young talent here that needs a little sharpening. So that's when I pitched him the Hate faction. I was like, I can, we can come in and we pretty much just took the NWO playbook and just just retooled it and
Latinoized it
because I was really into New Japan at the point. This is I guess before it became really really popular with everybody. It was on Access TV, so I was kind of watching a lot. But it was all everybody. All New Japan was all factions. It was Chaos and Bullet Club and so I remember I was talking with the Bad Dude Tito and Rico Dynamite and a few other guys, and they're talking about how there was kind of, because we were working at Santino's, but we were kind of I don't know, we weren't having a good time. Maybe it was because our own attitudes were soured or something internally. We weren't. I'm like, hey, we should just form a faction and beat up all the new students. We'll be the bad guys. They're the good guys. We're old. It's just a classic storyline. Old versus new. And they just got to overcome us. And then they do at the end. But we could be a faction, kind of like the Bull Club or NWO and this and that. We came up with the Hate, and then and we're like, let's do it. And then but the idea got passed, and I get and I can see, and looking back on it, I can see Joey Chaos's perspective, because we were pretty sour. We did have bad attitudes.
Right.
But I kind of think that's what motivated it, and we were like, oh, this is the idea that we could sink our teeth into, and that we could get behind and help and wrestle Guy Cool.
It'll make it fun again.
Everfly and Heather and beat them up, and in True Grit, and beat them up, and we'll be the champs, and we cut promos and blah blah blah, and we just beat the Bull Club. And I was telling Tito, I'm like, what if you'll have fun if one of us is going out with you the way Cody Hall would always go out with the Young Bucks or whoever,
right?
And, just causing shenanigans, and they were into the idea, but again the idea got passed on. And so when I took it to UEW, I'm like, hey, this is a great idea. You should do this. And he's all about it, especially because he was, I think at the time, Santino's and them were feuding. So it was kind of let's just stick it to them and use.
We'll take the idea they rejected, sure.
And then that's how it was, that's how it was at the time, Not say it's anything like that anymore. But so that we did it, the next show I wrestled on my actual UEW show, and I was on it, and I was pretty meticulous in how I planned everything. This is kind of the precursor of how I became the booker or a booking mind, was that so we go, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go out there, and then I'm gonna have Rico, Tito, and Che and Damian Arsenic sit there in the front row, and then be like, hey guys, and kind of how the Radicals showed up on Raw.
Sure. Right.
So I was like, hey guys, and again, still NWO type stuff. So blah blah blah. Me and Tornado, Human Tornado wrestled, and again, we didn't tell anybody. I think only 4 people knew what was going to happen, right? In the security.
Oh man.
And we're we just let's just play it as real as we could play it. People know that people just associate us and them as Santinos, and they hate, and the fans of Front Row Mafia hated the whole Santino product. Right. So we had it played out so that way. Me and Tornado are going. Blah, 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 blah. Tornado spills to the floor, and then he falls in front of Rico and Che and everybody, and then Rico just kind of puts his hand on his shoulder, like, hey man, you all right? And then Tornado swings at him, swings. And I'm and that was the thing, is we're throwing real punches, guys. So just be ready. We told security, we told them, and again, like I'm at the like
you want it to look like a real altercation.
Yeah, so they weren't even there yet. They didn't get there till my match. So I was just sitting there texting them, like, okay, my match is coming up. So they came in, they walked in, and then the thing is we acknowledge them and we bring the fans to them, but then we and that was it in the beginning of the match. Yeah. And then the match me and Tornado were going, and then we come back to it, and then they were there. So then Damien Arsenic threw his soda on him, and then they start brawling. Security comes, starts fighting. Then some of the fans jumped in and started fighting. So everybody just fighting each other. And if you guys know Tito and how intense he
is not a guy you want to fight.
So they throw us out, like, and they throw me out too. They're like, oh, you're with them. And it's like, no, I was here with you guys. Like, and then like they threw me out of the building, and I'm sitting outside the building yelling, let me go in and get my gear. Let me go in and get my stuff. Andre, give me my money so I could go. And then so then we left and we went to a burger joint down the street, and we're just like, wow, that was really good.
That worked out perfectly.
So then I did their underground radio podcast, and I was like, hey, I had nothing to do with that. I have no idea. And I'm like, I just want to, I want to address it because I hadn't even talked to those guys since that happened, and this and that. So then I come out, and this was such a weird story because it was my grandpa's funeral, and we buried him that day, and I had to shoot over to the show to do this. And that's like how it was all done, and something, we buried him. He's done. So I was like, shoot, I got to get my mind off this. So I'm gonna try to go run and do this show real fast.
Right.
So we go to the show, and I have a Santino Bro shirt on.
I
had a layer of 3 shirts.
You're just rubbing the dirt in.
So I go there. I'm like, so the promo was like, hey, I came here for the Cruiser Cup. I had great matches with some of your guys, and you guys were all about me. But then it's because of these eyes on my chest. You fans turn your back on me, and the company itself's like, sketchy on me. So I'm all sus. I'm with it. I'm hip.
Yeah. With the times.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, like, I want you guys to know that like I accepted a position as a trainer here. Like I'm stuck with you guys, and you guys are stuck with me for a long time. So then I took off the Santino shirt, and I had a UEW shirt on, and they were like, yeah. So then I'm like, all right, guys, I'm your guy. I'm with you, and let's just move on. And then we had, Rico, Damien, and Tito and Che come through the back door. And they were like, oh, what the fuck? Like, you with them? No, you claim you don't know us? You don't know us? And I was like, guys, what's going on, man? This is the blah, blah, blah. And then DeMarco Wilson, Max, and...
all the UEW, like, young guys.
Came out, and they I think it was just... Yeah, them. They came in, the kids. Yeah, they came in, they saved me, and we backed them like, come on. So we did like, come on, let's fight. Blah, 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 blah. I do the gimmick where I get behind one of them, I low blow one of them, and then we jump them, and then I take off my UEW shirt.
And you got the hate shirt on.
That's where you have the hate shirts on, and we were rolling, and then little by little we would introduce, and then the way we introduced Peter was my favorite. Will always go down as my favorite, because then we did the, of course we do the 4-on-4 winner take all Survivor Series match. Us as hate against the UEW guys, and then it was like Max. Max was in there, DeMarco was in it, I think, and then so we came, and then it came down to me and Tornado in the last.
Where it started.
Yeah, so where it started.
Storytelling.
We're going. He gives me the DND off the top rope through a table. He's about to pin me. Some dude runs in with a mask on and starts beating him up, and then then the UW locker comes in. Every brawls out, right? Boom. But then it was just down to this mask guy who came to attack Tornado, throws me on top of him, and 1, 2, 3, we win. He takes off the mask, revealing that it's Peter Avalon, and like my wife has it on video somewhere, but the place exploded because they had no, like, we kept Peter such a secret too, and this is how close to chest I played it, was that I bought him a mask, I met him before the show, I gave it to him, and then I'm like, don't show up till this time. My friend Doug is gonna meet you, and you guys are gonna walk in together like you guys are fans. So they walk in, they pay tickets, and then they go to sit down, and then they just sit down together. And then I just text Pete, whenever you see this particular spot, jump over the guardrail and
so people thought he was just a guy.
Yeah.
Like oh my gosh.
So he walked in as a fan,
playing with fire on that one.
Yeah. But because we're renegade, brother, we're outlaw, we're trying to do it real. Yeah. When we revealed it was Pete. The thing is that Pete and I hadn't been on the same show for like 6-7 months. We weren't teaming together either at the time. Right.
Was he still doing like Hollywood, like big on Hollywood?
Yeah, he was like Hollywood Heroes champ or some shit like that.
Oh, okay, wow.
So yeah, Peter jumps in, we takes the mask off, blows, PP Ray's back together, yeah, and he's part of Hate. Oh my god! And then we go on to win the tag titles because then Pinky and Bateman show up, and then we do the Hate show, and like it was all leading to that Hate show. I just wanted to
of course.
We like started doing the NWO playbook, just like okay, now we have our own show, and then that's where I won the UEW title because it was our own show, and then we were like that's when we brought Mondo in, that's when we brought Justin Borden in, and like we Hate was huge at that point, and everybody was like wanting to get in Hate. Like we were like,
oh yeah, it was like, and everybody wanted a shirt, and you're like, we don't sell Hate shirts. Like you have to be in the club to get a shirt.
And now that was my idea, was that I didn't want to sell any Hate shirts. I wanted to be just member exclusive because then people are gonna want it more.
Oh yeah, big time.
And then the only time that they were ever on sale was at our show.
At the
Hate show. So it was only available one time ever. So if you wanted to get your hand on a Hate shirt, you had to come to the Hate themed show. And we made money hand over fist that
of course. I mean,
no, it definitely, you guys did a great job of, and I only caught the back half.
Yeah, we only caught the very end of
like,
Hate.
The idea of it was this really cool exclusive club with all these like badass SoCal guys, and everybody wants to be in it. And who, like, I'm sure that you guys were getting. I remember one time Rico, I think, put on Facebook that he was taking Hate applications, and the thread went crazy.
And it was like,
and what made it great was that the fact that it wasn't exclusive to UEW, because then little by little we started branching out into other companies, and then so it was like we were because you're a heel in EWF, but then you're also a face in SoCal Pro or something like that. But we were across the board heels everywhere we went with our Hate shirts, and everybody knew us everywhere we went. So it was cool that the faction had moved from company to company. And we were at one point we were like, I think we had like 6 belts. We were champions of like all these companies, and we were like on one given day we were on like 6 different shows, but we were all representing Hate.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to see how it grew like that. And then eventually, we went to their UEW's WrestleMania, and I dropped the belt back because that was the whole thing.
Of course, yeah.
We build ourselves up, and I'll always be grateful to Andre Verdun for allowing me to have that creative freedom to build, and with Hate and Jungle Boy and UEW, they had their best business.
Right.
Like they were drawing houses. That weren't normal for them. And
I didn't even hear about UEW until the Hate stuff,
because people were going to those UEW shows specifically to see us, and there was a couple missed opportunities that I think that I would have changed going back. But it ultimately served a purpose into creating that brand, and that how long has it been now? Like 3-4 years.
It's been a couple of years.
But the whole mindset was that we're trying to prove we're the best, but also at the same time we were trying to help young guys. So like we went in there to help, Miggy Rose, DeMarco, and a few other guys like that. Biagio. So we went in there, we weren't in there trying to get ourselves over. We were trying to get over enough so that when these guys beat us, it meant more.
Sure.
Right. And that's how I found myself into MPW. Now we can start
for episode 3. Thank you guys for watching.
We're breaking into this. I was watching. At the time, I kept my ear really close to the ground in terms of Southern California. I think I was doing the Rosas Report podcasts, so I was always watching everything going on and talking about it, because like people may not know what's going on in San Diego, people may not go in the Inland Empire. So I kind of like try to like unify it. I don't know why I take that responsibility on myself all the time, is like to try to bring
because
the
you
whole
saw
scene.
success in the Hate thing, and you're like, and that was the first time you were like, probably like this can't happen. Like the companies can be like, because that just gives everybody a place to work. Mm-hmm. It gives the fans any place. They can go any place to see any kind of wrestling they want. Like that just makes the scene better. It makes everything better.
Yeah, and that was the goal, at the end of the day. So Danny Munchichi Ramirez, one of the guys that helped me come up in the visit, and let me tell you what was different. I think what's a little different for me back when I was young, trying to get bookings at places. My trainers got me a lot of the bookings. I think my first real one I got on my own was I had to send a MySpace message to a booker, and got lucky, just had, he happened to, like, he's like, hey, Cincinnati Red, Which is funny. That goes back to MPW.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like
but it was Cincinnati Red, and he's like, hey, we're all booked up right now. Like, we try to use our students mostly. But hit me back up in a couple weeks, and then we'll see if you get you on. And so I waited, and then I messaged him like, hey, just checking back in with you. And he's like, yeah, actually this weekend we have something if you're available. And then I go, I have a good showing. And the thing about this, like when I went to that, it was EWF, and when I went, like Mongo Santino, my trainer, went with me. Like that's kind of how I had,
Just have your back.
yeah,
That's
or holding my hand, however you see it. So I went, I had a good showing, and then next thing you know, I'm booked there consistently for the next 3 years. So this is the opportunity and how you,
Right.
But like nowadays, like you can DM anybody through any source. I think it's easy to get bookings now, and it all has to do with
Facebook Messenger.
just showing up sometimes. Like that guy,
Yeah.
what's that guy, Juicy Fanua?
The guy who did the GCW thing?
Yeah, like
he just showed up and they were like all about him.
yeah. So it's just he went there, he flew himself, and he's
On the show.
yeah, he's on the show, and so people kind of like when I came up is like, oh, you don't fly yourself anywhere. You just ruin it for everybody else. Because nobody's gonna fly anybody else if you're flying yourself there. And I was and I listened to that. I never like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna wait for somebody to fly me out. And that probably
That's not how it works.
That's probably what stunted a lot of my progress. Should have just flown myself out there. But then we go back into I need to make sure I have work day.
Of course.
So
Right.
1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah.
Anyway, Danny Munchichi Ramirez was working at NPW and UEW, and I said I kept my ear close to the ground, so I tried to keep on going what's going on with everything. But then there was one little company that I didn't really know much about, and I had to like do actual research to look them up, and that was MPW. And I know of MPW because back when Cincinnati Red was booking and Ryan Taylor was champion, and he was wrestling like Akira Tozawa and Davey Richards and all those cool matches, and I knew sooner or later I would probably make my way there because Cincinnati Red, knew me and
Knew you and trusted you.
Yeah, we had good relationship. And then he passed away. And then we, of course, the MPW went through like this whole brand new change, like it's pretty much a brand new brand.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like looking at the results here, and I'm seeing names I don't recognize, but then I'm seeing names I do, and it's like, oh shoot, like Brad Maddox and Sandow and Austin was Luchasaurus was coming to train with me at UEW, so he would talk to me about it, and I'm like, dog, get me booked, like I need like they need what they need over there is a good middle, because they have these young kids, they have these established guys, but they need the middleman to work both sides, because for example, if Danny's in there with Maddox and Maddox is just beating the hell out of him,
Yep.
Yeah.
But he went to a more established guy, maybe, I don't know. But that was my selling point. I was telling it to Munchichi, I'm like, get me booked so that I can help everybody.
Bridge the gap.
Yeah. So he said, yeah, you're booked. Okay, cool. He said, yeah. So I had to pick him up and drive him to the show. That was like the
Payoff. I get you booked. You give me a ride.
yeah. And then he was like, oh, I'll be an associate of Hate. And I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever. But Mondo was already there. Mondo Vega was already there, kind of ready, planting the seed, bridging.
Yeah,
He wrestled Moon at one point, and
Frankie.
he
At
just
our big show.
Let me tell you that like I'll always have love for Mondo and Justin, because they were out there spreading the brand when nobody asked them to.
Sure.
Like there was a couple guys and actually Hate that I had like, hey, can you guys talk about Hate, or hey, you guys wearing your shirt? You guys come into the music and this and that, and they were kind of doing their own thing, or wasn't feeling it, or they felt to me but gone past the point. But I was still pushing the brand. And then we had like in 1 year we had 2 shows that were like, besides our own show, we had AWS that was a Hate theme show, and then of course eventually we had our own
Chamber
MPW.
of Hate. Yeah.
So yeah, that first day is like, okay, so I'm not sure if these kids know who I am or what I'm about, but I have to make a good first impression, because you have to, I'm a guest. I'm a guest in someone else's house, and I've been that way since I left Santino's. I go into UEW. I'm a guest. I'm gonna treat everybody just like if I'm a guest in your home right now. Like I'm not gonna sit here like putting my feet up. It's like, no, I'm gonna treat everything with respect and be nice, and that's how I treat wrestling too. Is like, okay, I don't know who's the top guy here. I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna come in here and be respectful, and not expect the respect because of who I am and how long I've been in it. I'm gonna go in there and earn everybody's respect, and try to have teachable moments. And it was me and the hobo. And I was watching a little bit of your guys' matches and how everybody was responding to certain things. I'm just like, okay, cool. This okay, let me try this. So I was like, okay, let's work a leg, and we'll do a draw. And then because since I've worked Hobo's leg so hard, like Munch is gonna hold his good leg down so he can't answer the 10 count, even though I was knocked out, so it ended up being a draw.
Yeah.
Unique finish, maybe not the best. Maybe if we done it a little differently, but I remember like just let me use Hobo to show off a little bit of what I can do and how to sell, how to work, and show these kids what they could what they can potentially be.
Sure.
At that point, I remember watching you and Hobo because I was barely training at that point, and like you could tell the difference in just like that we had not had working matches before. We were just doing a rehearsed version of every single. People were either having matches that were nothing or were so rehearsed that it looked rehearsed.
Yeah.
Like I remember going like, that was different. Like that's what I see on TV. And I remember that being like a big shift, but also the start of like we don't like Rosas coming in and trying to steal our jobs.
So, I remember telling Triple X, I'm like, hey man, whenever you need me, I'm here to go. I'm good to go.
He fell in love with you that day.
Yeah. And then, then I wrestled a few shows, and then eventually found myself as a regular. And then I think it wasn't until UEW had got shut down, and nobody had told me the building had shut down. I think it was Dr. Feelgood had to be like, hey, did you hear the building closed? And I'm like, what? No. Nobody told me anything.
You have class.
I'm still waiting to find out the notice. But he told me, and I was like, well, that's messed up. And still, nobody to this day, nobody's called and mentioned that building's closed. But then the very next, so that was Sunday, the taping, when he told me, hey, the building's closed. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do now? So then as I'm driving home from work the next day on Monday, Triple X calls me. He's like, hey, how would you want to be a coach here? And I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
I'll be there on Wednesday. He's like, cool, see you Wednesday. And then, that began the long, fruitful relationship with me as the coach. And, I always try to reward loyalty, so it's like, if they were down with me, I'm going to be down with them. They were, you know what I mean? Like they want to go all in on Rosas. I'm going to go all in on them. And that's when I was like, okay, that time at UEW, I had to learn how to be a teacher. And then as I was like, okay, so I was picking it up, like how to run classes, and guys like Andy Brown, Fidel, Dickie Mayer were coming in, and even they were like, "Wow, you were good." And I had like Hot Young Briley coming in, and Luchasaurus was coming in, and they were training with me, and they were like picking up stuff, and I was just we're showing the little lucha stuff mixed in with a little of the Ring of Honor stuff that I picked up from the seminar, and it felt good. It built my confidence as a coach, as a trainer. When I go to MPW now, I have like brand new minds to mold, and it's just like, oh, this is fun. So like watching people progress. Frankie Frank was one of the ones, and Dr. Feelgood, probably my first ones that went from like that were wrestling at MPW, but then they were going to meet at UEW to train with. So then I went there, like, this is great. Now you're closer to us, and Frankie was probably like one of my favorites because I knew he can keep up. Phil had a lot of tenacity, a lot of heart. Like he was overcoming a lot of awkwardness of his own body. Sure. And that's when I met Auntie Heidi. I met Auntie Heidi there, and man, let me tell you, that's been a long, arduous work. But man, she's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. Ever had the privilege of teaching, because she just doesn't give up. She tries so hard. And she takes the punishment and then comes back the next week and does it again.
Yeah, she's the hardest working student, I think, in any school.
Yeah.
And then I saw how much the faith the company was putting in me. That one show with the guys from Funhouse.
Oh yeah.
James and Lawrence.
Yeah, like they were coming in. They trained for a week to learn how to be wrestlers, and they were supposed to have a match. And then they were like, okay, you and Mondo are going to wrestle those guys. And like, I would have expected them to wrestle guys they were training with, right?
I was super pissed because looking back, thank goodness.
Well, the point was to put them with guys who they didn't train with.
Yeah. But we were asking Paul, because I think that was before, like you had been like had a day, but you weren't like established as a Millennium guy just yet. we were asking Paul, like, who are they wrestling? Who are they wrestling? He goes, oh, Ray and Mondo. And we were like, what the hell? They're not our guys. Huh. Thank goodness it was not any of us.
So then that match was fun. It was interesting, but you saw the faith and the confidence that the company had in us to do that. And we had a great little match with them, and it was hot because they drew so many fans.
Yeah, they're a big draw.
But like I remember it was a tall order for me because right after that match, we did the run in with Mittens coming in, and then I had to wrestle the national title match right after. So in my head, I had to plan it just as one match.
And then you were in the Rumble.
And then I was in the Rumble later, where I was like in the
final three,
like 30 minutes. So I was like, that was a tough night for me. But I think that's the night. I feel like that's the night that I earned everybody's respect
for sure
in the company, because I go around and I was trying to coach people on how to structure the matches a little bit, because I think it's one of my biggest strengths on how to structure a match, and that eventually helped me learn how to structure shows. But I think that particular night was like, okay, cool, like. I earned everybody's respect, and then that's when I got run through the gauntlet of having to wrestle like everybody on the show. Like, I had to run through you, had to run through Moon, wrestle Frankie, and Bulletproof, and everybody, and then we did the hate pack angle where me and Dan Joseph were doing dumb stuff, and that's where like me and Dan were like booking a lot of ourselves, because Triple X, he's the booker, but he had like almost too much respect for us in the sense we're like, oh, whatever you guys want to do. And so we had a lot of creative freedom, good and bad.
Sure.
But we were entertaining without us having to like do a lot. And then the big blow off was us doing that.
Wrestled each other for both tag belts.
And then I won control of the company, and then I actually became the booker. But I always tried to treat everybody equally. Try to treat everybody fair. Like, everybody that was our students, we had to use. So like some of our shows weren't that great because a lot of our students weren't that great.
Sure.
Right.
But like we had guys like, Diego Valens, who was, B- at the time. And I remember I wrestled him. We had a really good match. And then like I cut this promo like to put him over afterward. Even though I was a heel, I was like, how long you been wrestling? How many matches have you had? And he's like, all shy. Like, he has no idea what's going on.
Like 7.
He's like 10. And I was like, 10 matches? You're this good and you've only had 10 matches? I never want to wrestle you ever again. Meaning like, because he just almost beat me and he's had 10 matches.
Right.
And that's just like kind of like in my head how I put it over. But we had a lot of freedom at that Moore Park venue, because since we're like
we literally could do whatever we wanted.
Not many people showed up, or not many,
It was a time to test things and try new things and go, if that didn't work, okay, well, no one's going to remember anyway, so we'll try something else next week.
Yeah. But we actually, once I took over the booking, then it was like, okay, cool, let's test some ideas. And that's when we get into like, how do we accentuate Auntie Heidi? Like, what are we going to do about her? So then I gave her the Cult of Heidi faction.
Oh, yeah.
And it had such great potential, but I think that it's because I was stretched thin everywhere else, and that was my vision, I couldn't really give it to anybody else. So like, hey, we're going to...
Right.
And then of course they had their own creative vision too. Like, it kind of unraveled, a little bit, even though they ended with other players like Malcor, and I think who else was involved in that? I think Diego was involved.
Diego,
yes,
Dustin Daniels a little bit at the end.
It was hard because I think you were put in a tough spot because you're trying to tell this really, really great story, and then all the other major players were doing other stuff. So you were just kind of like trying to make this happen from guys that were relatively new or were just kind of thrown into the situation. So just,
Yeah, at that point, everyone who was pretty established was doing like something else, because that's when we just did the Millennials thing, and we were using Chuck Mercer, and like Bulletproof and Elijah Friday were feuding, and like Phil and all the other guys were doing the mid card title thing. So all you had left was just.
I was really proud of how I especially because it's like, learning how to do this right. Every week I have to book a show and book a card and make sure you use certain people. Make sure certain people are available. And I try not to use too many outside guys because, of course, we had a very limited budget.
Yeah.
And so now I have to try to use our students and then we were exhausting all of our matches. So now people have to start switching sides. So this person's a heel, this person's a babyface, just to keep things fresh. And this is wrestling. That's how it is. After so long, people are tired of Seth Rollins being the cocky heel. So now we're going to turn him into the work machine babyface, and then vice versa.
Turn him back.
So with the mid card I was really proud of with Max and Frankie and Phil. The world title situation with you guys and Flame and then the tag division was a little thin because we had very little
3
guys.
teams,
and then trying to figure out what to do with myself without keep putting myself over especially as the booker. You're in a tough spot. I think I was just losing every match at that point.
You turned into Jeans Ray, and then you were just doing whatever needed to be done.
It felt like we were doing some really good stuff there, and I think a lot of it was just which was testing stuff because we had come up with the Millennium Cup series.
Yep.
The birth of the Millennials, the anti-hide, the Dr. Feelgood. Remember we did it was Dr. Feelgood and Frankie Frank
Millennium Idol
in a singing competition.
Yeah.
And
we were just starting to flirt with like the idea of making the show more than just
it wasn't just wrestling. Anymore. Yeah,
it wasn't just matches.
We were having
because when we went to Chatsworth, that's where like
that's where I was like, oh cool.
Fresh
So
stuff.
I say, we're gonna get to that, but like the Millennium Idol was like
Millennium
totally a different thing.
Yeah, we were doing a bunch of different stuff. We think, and I was like, okay, cool. Like this is stuff that these guys can develop their characters without having to be in a match.
Yep.
Because you try to keep the card between 5 and 6 matches. 7 matches would be too much.
Yeah, because I remember I was the world champion at the time, and I only defended the title once, and in that time, I lost. That's when we did the Rock Shamrock finish with the handcuffs.
But I think as a heel, you're avoiding defending the title.
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Because I think when I was the heel and I was champion, I was defending it every week.
Well, I was gonna say that was the difference because when I won the title,
You got so over with the
it's
fans.
like I won the title way too early. It was like my 12th match ever. They're like, you're the champion, and because I sold tickets.
And like, what does that even mean?
I was like, okay, but
and that's a fine line you walk too because you have that what I call the Bo Cooper effect, where you're over enough in the hometown that we have to put you late enough in the card. Right. So so that's what we'd have to do for a lot of the guys that were like when Caleb had his debut match.
you had to be the main event.
He had to be the main event because he was bringing a lot of fans.
That was the best show ever, man.
When Sage was having her
Had to be the main event, right.
farewell, we had to put her at the end. We couldn't, even though we had other bigger stories going on, we had to put those in the
Like Moon's retirement, with Peyton's match, Aurora Star's match. Ugh. She had to be. We were the main event, but like we talked about that with Moon is.
But it's finding the weight of what weight does this match carry? Whether and I think that was the problem with when you were the champion, when I was the champion, we defended the title so many times that it took away the weight of defending the title.
It did.
It just didn't matter. It's like, who's Danny going to beat for the championship this week? It didn't matter.
When you were champ, we decided to have you not defend it because you were heel. Not have you defend it until you absolutely had to. The 30-day limit on it. So, and then even then you squeaked by with it. Yeah. And
that was the first time we got like really booed as heels because we were super over it at MPW at the time. But then, like, we did that, and you said, like, we have to do something because they're still cheering for you guys. And because we didn't know that we were just like, we can be heels. Boo you, fan. And they're like, no. Like, until we did that, and then they were like,
there were some
you son of a bitch.
There were some really good moments in that Moore Park building that are probably lost to time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, some really good ideas that we had there that were in front of nobody.
We'll cycle them to the new place.
Remember when me and Max were feuding, and we had an opening segment, and then we fought. We brawled. We brawled out of the ring. We brawled through the curtain.
Yeah.
2 matches go by, and then we brawled back through the front door. And then
you guys did my favorite where you're doing your entrance and Max slides in.
And I did the Shawn Michaels. I flagged him out, and I continued my entrance because it was the same episode.
I was like,
same episode, same show.
So
same show.
Or the time we tried to do the twin magic with you and Max.
Yes, it worked.
Uncalled, just like
that was the most scared I've ever actually been in a match because it was because you went on a kick when we were talking about what you were doing when you were booking. You just decided I'm going to pick someone at the beginning of every show and we're calling it in the ring. I'm not going to talk to them.
Well, because like I said, I already wrestled everybody on the show, and we can go out there and call in the match in the back and have a great match. But it's like now it's like this time the point for both of us to learn how to call it in the ring, and it started with you.
It's so funny too because we had like 3 matches beforehand, and we like the first one ever. I was like, was when you were like, and you're like, let's have a 30-minute match every single time I'm out there.
My CM Punk
because you were the champion at the time too. But then we had like 2 matches, and I was waiting. I was like, he had the call it with Danny match, call it with Max match. Like, I'm next. He's gonna do the call it in the ring, and we did this one match where you're like, no, let's call it in the back first, and it was not great. I don't remember if you know exactly.
It's probably your fault.
Oh yeah, of course. Of course. It was the night that I unconsciousized myself.
Oh yeah. When you knocked himself out.
But then when I was champ, you were like, "Let's do the call to the match thing," and then it was the best match like I had ever had at that point.
Well,
and we literally called nothing.
The difference between the 2 matches was that in the first one we did, I was the heel. Right,
and I was real bad.
And I felt bad. I owe one to Moon because I think he was one of my first ones. So let's call it in the ring because we already wrestled each other like 4 times in a row. Mm-hmm. And I was like, let's just call this one in the ring. And I was the heel, he was the babyface, so we were kind of like it was a lot of stutters, a lot of like if that makes sense, like a lot of stutter, like what do we do? I figured it out when I worked with Danny that particular match with the Max X. When I was like, okay, cool. This is what
I think we were both heels.
But we needed action. But that, you know what I mean. So I'm like, take over, do this. We basically were doing work on transitions. When we had our call in the ring match, I was the baby face, so I was able to. It was easier for me to dictate how the pace I wanted to go. It's like we got to speed it up. We got to speed it up because it was getting too much of a lull. And it's like, yeah, all right, now cut me off so we can slow it down. And we'd have a cutoff moment. And then we were almost like a King's Road match. We just kept drawing out our falses. Yeah. Where it's like, what do we do? I'm going to miss the lion salt. I think I missed the lion salt. And
you just kind of gave me a look. And I was like, he's never hit the lion salt ever in his life. So I bet I'm going to move out of the way. Yeah. And then you would just, and I remember like my favorite moment of that was you had just made up like, you were calling it the Rosas. You're like knee strike, and I was like, you gotta hit your Rosas. You're like, I'm not doing it. I hate it. I'm not doing it. And I sold up in a way. I was like, there's no other option. He has to. He gave me like a super kick, and I didn't go down. I just like went to my knee, and I was like, I looked at you like, come on, baby, give it to me.
Holding me hostage in mid match,
and it looked awesome.
But that's those called in the ring because I was going back to when we wrestled with Max. Is you'd said, okay, we're gonna do this spot where Max we're gonna do twin magic, and I said, when? You're like, I don't know. And Max goes,
when it works.
When do I come out? I don't know. And then you climbed up to the top to do the elbow drop, and I'm laying on the ground waiting, and Max is peeking through the blinds, and I just winked at him. And he was like, okay, I guess this is it. And you hit the elbow drop, and you popped up to Jazz, and Max rolls me out and lays there. And it was so good. But we had no idea that was when it was going to be.
But it was the perfect time to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like this is Ray Rosas.
And he was like wearing your tights.
The big false, and I hit it, and I knew that it was coming too because it just felt right. It's what I'm saying. It's like when you call things in the back. You're just going over what you rehearsed, and sometimes you'll say welcome, or sometimes it's like, oh, that was the wrong time to do it, but it doesn't matter because
it's in the plan.
It's what we had planned. Where it's like we can adjust to the crowd. That's what I'm saying. When I was able to dictate the pace, listen to the crowd. Oh, they're kind of bored. Oh, we need to do something. Throw a chop. Hey, give me a back body drop. Hey, watch here. Eat this super kick. So it's just like these little. Nothing big, no big sequences, but just a particular move or small sequence that could get the crowd back into it, and then that's that babyface fire up that a lot of people like lack, or not necessarily lack, but don't have the sincerity.
Know when to do
it. There's you know what I mean. You could tell when a person's being phony fired up,
right?
So you have to work on that conviction of like, whoa, man, you're in trouble now, mother sucker. Ooh, and because that's what it's all about. Because as a babyface, it's like you want to keep me grounded. You know what I mean? If you're the heel, you want, because as soon as I start getting away and building momentum, you're in trouble.
Right.
And that's how I always felt it. So I was like, because that's always my running forward, duck clothesline, big jumping clothesline. Yeah, I might come back. Beat up for something. Mission over driver. Oh no, fucking that's, and those were all safe moves that anybody could take, and I could call it. Like, throw a clothesline, and then I duck it and hit a big one.
Yeah.
But those are the moments you feel like as a group, as workers, we felt that moment. I hit the elbow drop and I knew this was it because I could see Max too.
Yeah.
I'm on the top rope facing Max. I hit the elbow drop, boom. I turn my back, look to the crowd, get everybody fired up because man, I get fucking high on that, the elbow drop. And then when I forgot who I was talking about, how like, Yeah, the ring awareness is not just with your eyes, right?
Yeah.
Your periph.
You could feel what was happening.
Yeah,
behind you.
I could feel it in my feet and the board shifting and the mat moving.
Yeah.
I could feel I could see the ropes bouncing like that. That's ring awareness, is knowing that something's going on behind you without having to even look.
Yeah.
And I turn, it's fire, turn around and like,
it's Max.
what's that? And it's just, but it's drawing in the fans to me.
Yeah.
And then so now we focus on this.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part, because that's building this moment. Like whatever moves and bullshit we did in the beginning meant nothing, because this right here was the climax of this whole match.
Yeah.
What is this?
The climax.
Well, and it came from that idea because on accident, Max showed up and goes, I forgot my gear. He goes, I forgot my gear. What do I do?
And he was like in your faction at the time or
like,
whatever.
I'm like, he was my tag team partner. Our faction was dead. Max and I were the Skater Boys. And I was like, and I go, here, wear my tights. That'll be funny. And he wears it. And then Ray goes, Twin Magic.
We're doing Twin Magic.
Because we ended up doing Ray and I called it in the ring. And then that led to a match where you and Shay,
so we went to intermission.
we called that match in the ring.
Yeah, so the Twin Magic beat down on Ray. Che makes the save. Let's have a tag team match later tonight. Playa. We go to intermission. We come back from intermission. It's a tag match.
Yeah, and it was
right.
And Max and I were in the same
I just
gear.
had to watch and be the world champion and not have any fun like you guys did.
Well, you weren't. I don't know if you were a champion then.
No,
I was champion then, wasn't I?
No, because I was with Max.
Oh, so I was just doing whatever.
You were maybe the national champion.
Man,
But Max and I, that was the end of the end of Divinity before the Millennials, when Max and I were in this limbo. Because that's something that Max and I talk about all the time, because Divinity ended and I joined the Millennials, and Max was just like, what the hell? We just stopped being friends. We never had like a falling out. We never had anything. I was his partner, and then I wasn't.
Max was too Max was too valuable to me as a mid card singles guy.
That was the thing, is because when he came in, this is the first time I met Max. I think he thought I was a bigger deal than I was. It's funny now because he's one of my best friends in the wrestling business. But he came up to me and he goes, hey, I'm in your faction now. Is it okay if I do a moonsault in my match? I'm like, Max, I don't care. Do whatever the hell you want, bro. Like, why are you asking my permission?
And again, he was a guy that came to one of the shows, helped out.
He filmed at the California Classic show where you wrestled the Funhouse guys.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to think about, like, because that was a match that like Danny Moon and I, like, that's where we like really connected as like us being friends. And Max like filmed it. It was destiny for us.
Was right there.
You know, because like you know, like the four guys who we say are close wrestling guys is me, Danny, Moon, and Max. Like that's the four of us. And it's so weird that he was like a part of that moment in a weird way.
Without knowing it.
It's
like
yeah.
the sisterhood of the traveling pants.
How no, it's not.
But Max was one of my favorite from UEW, and one of the ones I would make sure that got in. Like I was
I think Max is one of the most like underrated, underutilized. But he's kind of like you. He's 1 foot, one in, one out, and and he's always like, I can't, I suck. And I'm like, Max is better than all three of us. I think
it's same thing too. And he's mainly his match is structured so where the other guy's doing everything.
Yeah,
and he's bumping and selling. Like remember we put him against Andy Brown,
and he killed it. And I remember afterwards he's like, I messed up my disaster kick, so the match was a wash. I go, no, it wasn't. You didn't.
No, Max is. He's so good.
He's so good.
I've wrestled Max, just calling the ring probably like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah,
and like
the dude rocks.
It makes me mad.
But to go back, all right, let's try to go through each individual talent that I had. You know, with Frankie, you know, starting off as one character and then moving into this one, it's again one of those things. It's like, all right, come on, we have to commit. All right.
Yeah.
So
what a scary thing to do. Like.
Yeah. And you know, Frankie works hard, and it's just it was always had a hard time finding the balance between character and the work, and then trying to make the work fit the character, and vice versa. But he it's funny because he's always kind of just flies under the radar and everywhere he goes, and it wasn't until we gave him that opportunity to turn heel and
become Frankie Frank.
Yeah, to become Frankie Frank. So Frankie Frank at first was heel. And then we did that thing where we at the Moore Park venue, which we ended up retooling, but we fired him.
Yep.
And then he did
he was different wrestlers.
He was different wrestlers, so he was pretending to be different wrestlers each show.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he was getting babyface sympathies.
Everybody loved it
until he finally beat me to get his job back, and then he was big time babyface.
Yeah. That street fight. He wrestled. It wasn't Ray Rosas. He wrestled he came on the hate shirt.
Yeah, he was Ray Rosas, and he beat me. So, so like just to be that just that easygoing to go with, like, cool, yeah, let me just be these different people. So he was always easy to navigate in that way.
Well, what Frankie has, and I'm sure is a booking advantage for you, is something that Frankie can do that a lot of wrestlers can't. Is he has that, like, those acting chops where he can sell the moments that you want him to sell. Whereas, like, it maybe he doesn't do all the crazy flipping, insane pile drivers in the ring. But I go back to, I'm sure we'll get to it, but the Naughty and Nice match that you did, he sold the hell out of that angle. And he made that moment, like, you wrote the story and then he put it into play and was like, oh, I genuinely
And
feel
that
bad
shot
for
him into
this
the
guy.
main event. That made him the main event guy.
Yeah, Frankie's a guy I could trust. That, like, I can write an angle, write a story, and then he'll know what to do with it and how to work it. You know, with the Gentleman's Club thing that we were about to pop off. It was gonna be good. It was gonna be really fun for Frankie and for
Brian Ford, yeah.
Dr. Feelgood was something that I was. Phil, like I said, I love Phil. Because he's one of my oldest students, like one of the person that trained me the longest, and I've always tried to look out and make sure, like, because he was a zombie lumberjack.
He was doing the weird, like, he was just Heidi's partner, and
he wasn't
muscle.
He wasn't allowed to talk, but he came to training. He worked hard, and I'm like, what can we do? What can we do? And I was in the shower. It's one of those shower thoughts, and I was like, I don't know why I thought of it, but it's like Dr. Feelgood. So I think I was listening to Dr. Feelgood.
I mean, I would assume so.
Yeah, maybe, but I was like, Dr. Feelgood, where it's a double play on both things. He's Dr. Phil, you know. So then I remember again, I started texting him about the idea, and I'm like, this is what we got to do. We're gonna make you a glam rocker, this and that, and
he went head first into it,
and he was like, cool about it. And that was a tough change. That was one of those tough sells I had to tell to Triple X to make the transition from Warren O to that.
Yeah.
Then we got Zumba. Remember we had the
Zumba,
great Zumba that came in and split up
he
Ziggy
was,
and the Sweet Fish, and they were the new Ziggy and the Sweet Fish, and then
he was Caleb's partner.
Yeah, then
And like Zumba was like, because he was like, he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but like he had that like charisma you need to get people to be invested in you.
So Zumba, because he showed up to train, has very little experience, obviously. Okay, he shows up, he starts training. We were doing a Christmas show, a fundraiser, and we needed another guy. And
is that when he came in?
Sweet Robin, right, was the one that brought Zumba in, and he goes, hey, I'll wrestle Zumba. Like, there's nobody here. It's a little kid show. Like, who cares? And he went out and he like killed it with his charisma. And Triple X goes, put him on a show. And we were like, and Zumba was even like, yes, I'm not ready. I don't know how to do anything. And he's still, so he's a guy that got thrusted in. He was tag champion twice. And he's like, I haven't even finished training yet.
He's always been a big staple of the show. He's always found his way to be.
And he's like half trained
because
not really,
because he's always there, ready to work.
Yeah,
you know, he's always like not like ready to wrestle, but he's like there to like set chairs up, do whatever, and
he'll do anything.
And he's somebody that is aware of his limitations.
Yes, he
knows what he can't do. He knows what he can do well, and he leans into that. He's not sitting there trying to. He'll never see Zumba try anything. Oh, let me try this new move or try this new gimmick or this and that. He'll always do what like I always tell people when you're starting out, do what you know you can do 10 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know that's what training's for, to practice that other stuff. You know, do what you do 10 times out of 10. And Zumba would be a fine example of that because he knows all he has to do is do his gimmick, and get over, and he knows how to sell.
It's what he's got.
Yeah, and that's it. And he gets a lot of sympathy, and he gets pops, and he's a babyface.
And it's his willingness to try. That's I think what it is too. Because like I remember one time we were in this like lost period where I had nothing to do in Moore Park, and before you like took the book, and I just said I'm wrestling Zumba, and we got put as the main event, and he was just like, I can't do the main event. And I'm like, well, we are.
You're in it, so you gotta figure it out.
Here we go. And it was one of my favorite matches I've ever had because and he didn't really do anything. I just took all these moves and I was thinking of offense, like how can I give offense that it's easy for him to sell and understand. Yeah. And we had this really fun match, and he ended up winning, and it was like this cool thing.
Yeah, so that's a cool thing about having students and having people you're training is that when you see their development and then you see them succeed and you're like, dang, that was. They did it. Like they lived up to
Yeah, it's nice to see a big payoff like that.
We're talking about students. Somebody like that is like I think is Diego, because Diego had every tool, but like I don't think he really became the worker that he is today until we got to Chatsworth. Like he was B- and he was good. He was athletic and he could have the cool matches. But then when he became the champion, you put him in every match possible with every major player.
Well, not only that, because even his character, the thing about B- is like, yeah, he was kind of an outsider for a little bit, because I think Frankie brought him to train him because he was maybe
trained
with Pete. He trained with Austin and Morrison. So he was training with those guys, and so he knew how to do stuff. He had basic ideas. So of course, like now,
he's super athletic.
Now my job is to teach him how to apply it. One of the things that that was taught to me just recently was that anybody can learn how, but it's when you learn why. That's when you start becoming a good worker.
Yeah. Why and when? Because
it's like, oh yeah, we can learn how to do a moonsault, but we got to need to learn like why we need to put it here.
When is it gonna get a reaction?
Yeah, or so that was like, dang, like so that left a big impression on me. So it was kind of what we were doing with there. Is like Diego knows how to do this stuff. We got to teach him. We got to teach him why. And so he would come every week. He'd come train. You come every week, and he'd go be on the shows. And just little by little, we're trying to mold him, build him. And then when you finally like opened up to us, it was and becoming
it was at Peace Man Dan's.
And then it was at the last show, and I told him like at the last show at Moore Park, I was telling him how hey man, I'm proud of you like for all your growth and like and everybody in that particular show. Maybe we'll have to talk about that in another episode, but
that'll be episode 3.
The shutdown.
Like that particular show is like we were uncertain, but again, we'll talk about that. But I remember talking to him and telling him how proud I was of him, and then he started crying.
I remember that.
It's weird when robots cry. One time we were at Pizza Man Dan's, right? And I said, hey, I was digging into him. And I was like, Brian, what was the happiest moment of your life? And he's like, I think when like the Vikings won at this game, I don't remember the situation. He'll be able to tell you, but I was like, that was the happiest moment of your life? He was like, yeah. And I was like, what's your favorite number? He goes, what kind? And I went, you're not a real person.
He was Brian.
Then he cried. Now he's a real
Diego's
person.
the kind of guy where we just like chipped, and then when we met him, we were like, oh man, Diego's the coolest guy ever.
Yeah.
Except for now, we're all intimidated by him because he's the captain of our Warzone team.
Yeah. Well.
But then when we went to the Chatsworth venue, then he was like changed his gear up just a little bit, and then he had the jean jacket, and he
got confident.
Then he became like a rockabilly, like had a little rockabilly edge to him, and I'm like, damn, that's really good.
His name change was
out of nowhere. The name change. Remember, we were talking about it on our chat, guys, exclusive chat. But we were talking about like we gotta get rid of that B- name, and he was saying about changing it. Or I think the company he was going to was it Ground Zero or
we were driving down to Ground Zero.
Somebody wanted him. No. Somebody. I think Maverick changed his name or wanted him to have a new name.
Yeah.
And then when he went to Ground Zero, he wanted a new name by the time he went there.
Yeah.
Because he had the new name at the Ground Zero show.
So I came up with Diego Valens.
He didn't use the moniker that we came up with him though.
But yeah, because
your girlfriend's boyfriend.
Because of Richie Valens, and now he was in this rockabilly type phase. So I was like, oh, Richie Valens, Diego Valens. I probably came with Diego, but the official like name change came when he debuted on Bar.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, really.
Okay. Yeah, so we picked, like I remember like I was told like, hey, yeah, like you're gonna wrestle Jurassic Express, and then it's gonna be you and then one of Luchasaurus's like students or whatever, friend, right?
And you're like, who?
I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay, whatever. And I'm like thinking like, whatever, Pete and I will do work, whatever. And then I saw B-, like I'm like, what? Right? Like, what the heck? But then the booker was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's his name or something. I'm like, no, that's my student. I know who that is.
I had no idea that was what happened.
Yeah. and Diego
he sent us a picture of like, guess who's on Bar tonight, guys? We're all guessing like famous people.
Yeah. Well, Diego, and he doesn't say anything. And he just messages me, goes, oh, hey guys, I'm at Bar.
I'm at Bar.
Yeah, I guess he found out that day. Because it was supposed to be a tag match with Jurassic Express, but then a third person became available. So then
Marco probably showed up. Yeah.
So then like we were supposed to pick Ryan out of the B- out of the crowd,
right?
And then put him in the like, hey, your dreams come true, blah blah. We had this whole promo thing, whatever. But I was like, hey, like, what do you want to like? We were talking about you like this is a good time for you, to change to Diego Valens, this and that, and so then he did Diego Valens, and then I'm like, change all your social media right now because people are gonna look you up after this match is over. Yeah. Because you're gonna blow everybody away with everyone.
We went on a retweeting spree. Yeah. Everyone was like,
Diego Valens.
You see who else I could talk about because I don't want to spend too much time on Brian.
He's the all-star.
Brian's cool.
You can talk about me.
Chuck, let's talk about Chuck.
Okay, let's talk about Chuck Mercer. Chuck Mercer is somebody that I gave such a hard time to, because I'd love to. But Chuck wasn't very good.
He was so bad.
He would start off as a referee.
Terrible referee.
A bad referee.
And he wasn't good, but he worked really hard. I kind of with me, it flies under the radar how hard he works, really. But don't make sure to edit this part out because I don't want him to know that I'm putting.
I would say like you got to be careful right here.
No, but like you said, like he didn't watch wrestling, so he didn't know much about it. And
we buried him.
Okay, on the podcast, I said like he doesn't even know who Goldberg is. He texted me and he was like, "I love the part of the podcast," and then sent me a picture of Stardust. He goes, "Is this Goldust or Goldberg?" And I was like, "That's."
But he's a testament to like our training program because he went from a beginner, nothing about wrestling to referee to associate wrestler and then progressing and I don't know what it was that like through a short period of time he progressed. Immediate like
clicked.
The click happened.
Yeah,
and I tell people that like eventually you're gonna click. Some people it takes 6 months. Some people it takes 5 years.
And then he became the MPW world champion.
He became the only option, really.
But he's another one of the guys that's like, you need a gimmick.
Yeah,
and we're gonna make you
and that saved him.
Yeah,
and that was a joke. It happened on accident.
Yeah,
he accidentally in a training one night with like after class was over, it was like the 4 or 5 of us hanging out, and he just was doing this stupid accent, and I was like, holy shit. Why did you do that?
Well, because his name was Charlie Mercer. And no one cared about it.
We called him Chuck, making fun of him.
I wasn't even part of that. There's one day you guys like, it's Chuck now. And I was like, what the
Chuck Mercer. Yeah. And once he started, had a little like, so because he was just like Master Flame student, and
we did everything we could to get Chuck over. We tried everything.
And then he became Chuck Mercer and he was Irish and he had the accent, he was talking, he had the hat, the everything. And then that's okay, cool. Now
fans were.
Something people could bite on, something to differentiate you from everybody else. And like when he cuts promos and he holds that accent, I'm like, dang, how do you hold that accent for so long?
Well, the thing with the Chuck had an advantage over which most people don't is he's got the acting chops. He was big
Frankie,
into
just
acting.
Like Frankie, he had that element.
Like, see, most guys come in like, oh, I want to be a wrestler, but I don't like do any. This is something that Steve says to us all the time. He goes, you can do all the moves in the world, but if you can't act, you got nothing. You have nothing to offer.
Yeah. Let me see. Moving on to.
Good job, Chuck.
Who else do we have? Who we talked about? Let's go on the list. We talked about Kristen.
We're at the point now.
I want to save Kristen for a whole episode.
We did a whole bit about her and I's things, but your perspective on that's gonna be
Dustin Daniels. I haven't. You know what I mean? Like he's athletic. He's got a lot of growth ahead of him. Physically and
Dustin doesn't really ever train with you though. Much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't have
he's more of a weekend guy.
I don't have a lot to say about Dustin.
When Ray is booked,
we'll have to see because he's still like just in the year one, like creator wrestler, like just plain tights, plain generic moves. So once I'm able to get to know him a little better and kind of just like figure out what his, because it's all about what your interests are and who your character is going to be.
You have to be happy with who you are.
So as of now, you suck, Dustin.
Barbie Boy was already made gimmick.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Barbie was something that like just fell into my lap. That was just like, whoa, this is a fun new toy for me to use in my.
But like
it
was nonsense because like I remember the day that we were because Barbie came into when we were at Chatsworth already and he like just showed up one day. It was like, I'm Barbie Boy. I've already wrestled on shows and stuff. And I'm like, what? Yeah. But like the day like we were having a show and I was like, you need to go talk to Ray. And he goes like, I don't know, like I'm shy. I don't want to. What am I? I go, just go introduce yourself to Ray and he'll put you on a show. And
that's easy.
Anyone else, he's like, hi. And you're like, oh, great. Hi. Like, I've heard about you. I'm Ray. Your book next week. And it's huge reaction.
Yeah. As I'm saying, like, he had this, like, this, I mean, it's in a smaller condensing, but like he had an it factor that would immediately affect our show for the better.
Yeah.
He was a
draw.
He was a draw. It was an immediate draw. So it's like, and he wasn't that bad. Like
no, he was very capable.
He was
and most importantly, he was fun to be around.
Yeah, wasn't an asshole.
We love being around fun people, and Barbie's one of my friends even, and like just it was this great thing, this great character, this great person just kind of fell into my lap here and was like, oh great, this makes life a little easier because I can put this out there. And again, doesn't he have to wrestle? Go out there and cut a promo. Go out there and
Yeah,
again,
his first day, he just. And who was the catalyst for Barbie's big success? Dr. Feelgood.
Well, and I was gonna say, do you remember that match we did? It was like a relay for life show, and it was Brendan and I versus you and Barbie. How fun that match was! And no one will ever see it. And it was so fun.
And like, you know what? Like you and Ray talk about how you have your roll through Fisherman Buster spot. That's where Ray and I's one spot was invented. The crotch in the corner to clothesline. That's Ray and I's turnaround forever now.
We could keep putting people over. We're gonna have to do a part 3 because we're gonna.
Are we already out of time?
We're out of time. So we're gonna do
you didn't
part
put me
3.
over yet. Hold on, let's let him do me. Go ahead.
Catch us here at the Millennium Podcast.
Wait, do Raymond's favorite thing.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. We're gonna do a part 3. I'm sorry if this has already seemed kind of long-winded.
This will be weeks apart.
These will be weeks apart from each other. But make sure to follow me on Twitter at Ray Rosas, on Instagram at other Ray Rosas. You can follow Brendan at
Brendan_Divine on Twitter and Instagram.
I'll try to figure out how to put them on the thing. I'm still learning how to edit.
Yeah.
All right. Peace.